With that, I'll turn things over to Kathleen Polson to talk about how they've used Hexawise at Fidelity Investments.
Good morning, everyone. At Fidelity, a financial company strong in the technical area, we are a technology company. QA is critical to the value we provide to our customers. Our goal is providing the best possible outcome for our customers financially in their lifetime. QA makes that happen. When I joined the QA team, having come from a development type background, and I'm an engineer by trade, I looked at the processes that we were using to test and found that we didn't really have what I'd call a scientific methodology to approaching the test. And I saw that although we had a good, strong focus on test automation, our regression test suites were continuously expanding. Every day people were developing new code, we had to develop new tests, people weren't doing a rigorous job around cutting back on those tests, some of them were no longer useful, etc. And we could not identify what the coverage was we had of the code that we were testing. We found also that there was a repetition going on of test cases. Furthermore, at the different layers of testing, you have UI testers who a few years ago were doing all of the testing at all of the layers. And so if you're testing at a lower layer, either at unit test or at the integration test level, we now have repetition of tests at the UI level and at the lower levels. So we had 3 different projects that I'll talk about where I feel like combinatorial or pairwise testing was the key to answering all of those problems. In the first phase, project number 1, where I actually work, the service testing project is that intermediate integration layer. We test RESTful services. And if I look at one of the examples that we approached Hexawise to work on, we've got an investment strategy problem where we're trying to tell people some advice or guidance about how they should invest their money. So in this kind of a space, we look at the possibility of significant under-testing. One of the problems that I think we've had in QA is the notion of what I call an emotional test. In other words, somebody, a business person, an analyst, etc., comes to you and says, I want you to test this particular case. Because they've had some bad experience or because they're the ones who invented this new design, they know what they wanted to do, right? So they have an emotional investment in how you've got to have something working. That results in a lot of under-test because of the number of parameters involved and the thought process of the people telling you how they want you to test. Furthermore, I could not go back to any of my partners and say what my test coverage was. Have I hit every possible parameter? Have I looked at them in combination with other parameters? And what we saw just blew me away. So first let me pause and say, we tried this with some of the open source tools that are available for a variety of reasons, and I'll look at a few of them in a bit. They were hard to use, but also they didn't scale. They really illustrated how you use pairwise or combinatorial tests, but at the enterprise scale, they fell over. The development time of those tests, I generously put at 80 hours. I know it took less than that. Okay. And now, I've got a test plan that is 100% maintainable. I've got the output of Hexawise in a spreadsheet form. We happen to save it as a CSV file. All the teams that are using Hexawise are using that same file. They can talk to each other. They're talking the same language now. The other thing I liked about Hexawise was this coverage chart on the left. The red cases, as a matter of transparency, I go back to my business partners and say, I am not running these tests. If they're important to you, I add them back in with a click of a button. I love that. This is not available through the open source tools, and it was a game changer for me. When I looked at this coverage chart, it gave me my choices. So with two-way coverage, so every possible input, there were 11 different parameters, many values of those parameters, I could get 100% two-way coverage with only 54 tests. Runs really fast. When do I want to do that? Maybe when I'm doing the smoke testing, if I'm promoting from one environment to another one. That's great. What about three-way coverage? With 300 tests, I'm able to do three-way coverage. I might choose that for a slightly different testing scenario. What we settled on for our regression test was that with 1,800 tests, it was a little bit less. These numbers are rounded, 1,800, I think the number was actually 1,762. So I'm always trying to be a little bit generous with the numbers here. We were able to have 100% four-way coverage. That's huge, right? 22 minutes instead of weeks of testing going on. And then I turned around, and Thomas from my team worked with Adam from the front-end UI testing team, and what we found were that the repetition of testing was coming up. The tests that we produced were converted into the given when-then type scenarios automatically, and when they're exported into Excel, you can use them to drive the Selenium test automation framework. No additional work from us involved. When deciding how much to test, we were able to reduce from 12,000 tests down to 600. Because this UI test team was using exactly the same kind of an Excel spreadsheet to look at all their parameter values as we were using at the lower services test layer, we were able to eliminate thousands and thousands and thousands of tests. In this particular diagram, what I'm showing you is we have two different types of investors, somebody who's single versus an investor that's investing with a partner in hand. We can articulate exactly what the test cases were. The bottom scenario here, you see a little cluster of black where we explicitly removed some of the test cases. Everything else is green. I'm able to say with assurance that I've got 100% test coverage. Every one of the teams that do this kind of testing had their own vocabulary about what they were testing and how they were doing it. They had their own test tools, etc. The common language has become the test plan that comes out of Hexawise today. Okay. I'd also like to talk a little bit about simplicity. So I've had college interns come in for their 10-week summer rotation who have been able to write tests using this tool in under a week. Really fabulous. So I was looking for fewer tests, right, from the start. I wanted fewer tests, but I wanted them to do more. Do more with less. And I got that out of this tool. And again, I think you could do that with other pairwise tools, but the simplicity of this tool, along with the way you can enter your parameters using the mind map tool, getting that coverage chart automatically out of it, having it export your data into a pretty commonly usable format, those are things that were terribly important to me. They gave me real value. I can now have a not embarrassing discussion with other teams about my test coverage. I can give them real numbers. I love that. I can accommodate many different types of testing. We're testing at the class method level, at the services interface level, at the UI level. All of them. We've explored every one of them. They've got benefit everywhere. Finally, the enterprise scale. I loved combinatorial and pairwise testing in small test cases. I mean, from the science portion of it, it's the right thing to do. It simply didn't scale at the enterprise level, and this tool does. You know, I had people that needed to talk to each other. Now they are talking to each other. I had people who wanted to articulate what they were covering. Now they are able to do that with assurance. I had people who wanted to run 100% test coverage and they didn't have the time to do it, and now they can. All of these things came about through an easy-to-use test tool. I strongly endorse it. If you don't want to go down that path, I think pairwise testing is something you ought to at least understand and value. With that, I'd like to take a few questions, if there are any in the audience or online.